The haunted apartment. When Lisa first saw the apartment, she knew it was perfect. Located in a historic building in the heart of the city, it had the charm she'd always dreamed of. A spacious living room, large windows overlooking a tree-lined street, and an old-world charm with its hardwood floors and vintage fixtures. What made it even more appealing was the price, affordable for a single woman like Lisa. She had just landed a new job in the city and was looking forward to starting fresh. The landlord, an older man named Mr. Collins, was friendly but a little strange. He seemed eager to show her the place, almost too eager. He rattled off the details of the apartment and its history, mentioning that it had been in the building for decades. He was quick to tell her that it had once belonged to a woman named Margaret, but she had mysteriously disappeared a few years ago. Mr. Collins didn't elaborate on the details, but Lisa didn't think much of it at the time. She was focused on the apartment itself. "I think you'll be very comfortable here," Mr. Collins said as he handed her the keys. "Just one thing. If you hear anything strange at night, don't be alarmed. This building has its quirks, but nothing to worry about." Lisa nodded, smiling politely. She assumed he was referring to the age of the building. Old buildings always had their quirks, didn't they? The first few nights in the apartment were peaceful. Lisa unpacked her belongings, setting up her furniture, and even hung a few pictures on the walls. Everything seemed normal, until the third night. It started with the faint sound of footsteps. At first, she thought it was just the creaky floors settling. But as the sound grew louder, she realized it wasn't just the house making noise. Someone, or something, was walking around the apartment. Slow, deliberate footsteps, as if someone was pacing back and forth. Lisa sat up in bed, heart pounding. She tried to tell herself it was the building's old pipes, or the wind outside. But the footsteps continued, moving from one room to another, always in a slow, deliberate rhythm. She wanted to ignore it, to convince herself it was all in her head. But the noises felt too real, too close. The next day, Lisa mentioned the strange noises to a neighbor in the building, Mrs. Turner, a woman in her 70s who lived across the hall. "Oh, you heard it too, didn't you?" Mrs. Turner asked with a knowing smile. "I'm not surprised. This building has always had its little secrets." Lisa frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "Margaret, the woman who lived in your apartment before you. She used to hear them too, the footsteps, the whispering. Sometimes she'd say she felt like someone was watching her. Poor thing, she never did tell anyone what happened to her. But she vanished without a trace. Just one day, she was gone." Lisa's skin crawled. She had heard the story of Margaret's disappearance from Mr. Collins, but she hadn't realized the extent of it. The old woman's warning didn't sit well with her. That night, Lisa was determined not to let the strange occurrences bother her. She went to bed early, hoping to get some rest. But as the clock struck midnight, the footsteps returned. This time they were louder, closer, as if someone was walking through her bedroom. Her heart raced as she pulled the covers over her head, trying to block out the noise. But it didn't stop. The footsteps grew faster, more erratic, as if something was pacing around her room. Suddenly the door to her bedroom creaked open. Lisa shot up in bed, eyes wide. She could see nothing in the dark room but the faint outline of the open door. She was sure she had locked it before going to bed. Yet it was wide open now. Her pulse quickened. "Hello," she called out shakily. "Is someone there?" No response, only silence. Her mind raced. Was someone in the apartment? Could it be a burglar? But that didn't explain the footsteps. She grabbed her phone and called Mr. Collins, her fingers trembling as she dialed. "Hello?" His voice was groggy, as if he had been sleeping. "Mr. Collins," Lisa began, trying to keep her voice steady, "I'm hearing strange noises in the apartment. Footsteps, doors creaking, like someone's walking around." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before he spoke again. "You're hearing them too, then," he said quietly. "I told you the place had its quirks. But, well, you need to know something. That apartment, it's not just the building that's old. There's a history to it. Margaret's history. And you're not the first one to hear those footsteps." Lisa was stunned. "What do you mean? What happened to Margaret?" "I don't know the full details," Mr. Collins continued, "but I do know she was obsessed. She was always talking about hearing footsteps, Voices, like something was trying to communicate with her. I thought she was just losing her mind, but when she disappeared, things got strange around here. People stay,